So, Donal, I saw you at the Regatta Bar maybe a couple of months ago, and I was totally blown away with your music because I'm a great jazz fan. And I have to say that a lot of jazz I hear is almost, it's sort of a set genre. It's kind of almost a set cliche kind of thing. And what you were doing was so fresh and so exciting to me.
Oh, thank you.
That I really wanted to find out more about it, and I'm sure other people would too. So I'm curious how you got started as a musician, and if you could tell me about your background and how did you know you were going to be a musician? Where did all this come from?
Well, I had piano lessons when I was very young, and I have to say my family was artistically oriented. There was music in the home, painting, and so the arts were there, and that's important. Also, in the grammar school, there was a band and orchestra. I'm saying that because now in a lot of the public school settings, the arts have been cut out, and it really has affected a lot of young children that really need that exposure, even if you don't continue on in the arts. So all of that, and my mother was very supportive. When I took my piano lessons, she'd actually sit beside me when I was practicing. I was about 5 years old, and that helped too, playing my little exercises. And it grew. I realized you start like most children, and you realize, hey, this is something I can do easily. I'm having fun with it. It's a gift, and then you get more and more instruction. You develop it. And I didn't think necessarily that I'd be a professional musician until much later, but I enjoyed practicing.
So when did you decide to become a professional musician? How did that all evolve for you?
I think probably in my teen years, there was a sense that I could do something with my music and share it with the world. There were more and more people who wanted to hear me play. There were opportunities. I was a young scholarship student at Tanglewood as a teenager, and I met other teenagers playing music, and they were thinking about being professional musicians. And so you realize you're not alone, and it becomes this network of support. And gradually, probably by the time I was 18, 19, I was starting to eking out a little bit of a living, that I was actually getting paid what I was doing.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you started out primarily as a classical musician, right?
Yeah, early training, especially in the piano and that instrument. Most of the early training, develop your technique, physical technique in the keys, sight reading ability to read. You study Beethoven and Chopin, Mozart and Bach, and I love those composers. But also in my family, there was other music I heard beside the classical music. There's recordings of Miles Davis. There's recordings of Igor Stravinsky, recordings of Thelonious Monk and Charlie Parker. And so it was this mix in my ear that I just thought was all good music. As you start studying in education, there's a tendency to categorize and sort of try to pigeonhole you. So they're saying, at some point they said, are you going to be a classical pianist or are you going to be a jazz pianist? I said, why do I have to choose?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But you went on, and did you study that in college, or was this sort of a side thing that you did?
No, the music really became a focus. As I said, I went to New England Conservatory, and I started focusing actually on composition, which we can talk about a little bit later. But because I really got involved in how music was put together. How did Beethoven put those notes on a piece of paper?
Right.
So that's the composition part. So I was bringing my performing skills as a pianist, the composer, how to write music, and then combining them, because I was reading about Beethoven and Bach and all those great composers that we learned in school, and they all improvised. And I said, well, how come all my piano teachers aren't letting me improvise? In the jazz world, they improvise, but what happened?
Okay, so as a composer and someone who improvises, when you improvise, do you do it in your head, or do you do it at the piano, or do you improvise on paper? Do you sit down and write those notes out and you know what they're going to sound like?
All of the above. I mean, improvising is spontaneous composition.
Okay.
It's the ability to create music without having to edit. Sort of what we're doing now. We're having a conversation. We don't have it written out.
No.
And
well, a little bit.
Yeah, you have some notes.
Right.
Well, the same thing is, say, when you saw me perform in the jazz club,
yes.
I had sketches.
Right.
and the other band members had sketches. But so we knew where we were going to begin, we know somewhere in the middle we're going to meet here, and we're going to end at a certain point. But we didn't know exactly what would happen in between, and that's the fun part, and now it doesn't mean somebody might be thinking, oh, so you have no idea what you're doing in between. No, we know where we're going, and the skills you develop, like in a normal conversation, there's a narrative, there is a purpose of where you're going.
So, what inspires you?
Life. Music is life, really. It's everything you experience, your personal relationships, your surroundings, the experiences you have as you travel and grow and mature. It's like you try to bring all those life experiences into your music, into your art, and then express them back out to the audience.
Well, it's funny. I'm an artist, and I would never think of painting someone else's painting. And I was singing one day as I was walking, and I was singing someone else's song, and I thought, well, this is ridiculous. Why am I singing someone else's song? And I thought, I wonder if I could make up a song. So, and then I started wondering about composers and if that's what they do. I mean, do you walk around thinking of melodies that just pop in your head, or how does it come to you?
Almost any source. Sometimes I wake up in the morning and I hear a sound. It doesn't have to be melody. It could be a texture. It could be a harmony. Sometimes it's visual, and then you want to capture it right away. So you might write it down verbally, describing it in words, or I'll go to the piano and I'll immediately play it and tape it record it, so I don't have to worry about the notation of it.